Single dad answered a midnight knock. The crying heiress outside changed his life forever. The knock came at 12:47 a.m., sharp and trembling, as if the night itself was begging for help. Daniel Reed froze in the doorway of his small, dimly lit kitchen, the flickering bulb above him casting long shadows across the peeling wallpaper. He wasn't expecting anyone, not at that hour, not in this quiet, forgotten corner of town. For a moment he thought he imagined it, but then it came again, 3 shaky taps, weak, desperate, as though the person on the other side had used the last of their strength to reach him. With his heart pounding and the weight of years of exhaustion clinging to his bones, he stepped toward the door. When he opened it, the cold wind rushed in, carrying the fragile outline of a girl who looked like she had run straight out of a storm. Her silk dress was soaked, her hair clung to her cheeks, and her tear-filled eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and pleading. In that moment, as the porch light flickered over her trembling figure, Daniel had no idea that this fragile stranger, an heiress whose world had just collapsed, was about to change everything he thought he knew about life, loss, and love. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the miracles that happen when strangers cross paths, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to K&H Stories to support meaningful storytelling. Daniel stood silently for a moment, his mind racing as he tried to understand what he was seeing. For years he had built a quiet, predictable life, raising his 8-year-old daughter Lily with every ounce of strength he had left after losing his wife. The nights were long, the bills felt endless, and the loneliness had settled so deeply in his chest that he no longer recognized it as a wound, just a part of him. Yet something in the girl's shaking hands and broken expression pulled him out of his tiredness. Instinct, or perhaps the remnants of a once hopeful heart, made him step aside and let her inside. As she stumbled into the warmth of his small home, Daniel noticed the bruises on her arms, the torn hem of the expensive dress, and the way she kept glancing at the door as if she feared the darkness still chasing her. The scent of rain mixed with the faint hint of perfume that didn't belong in houses like his, and everything about her presence felt unreal, like a wealthy world gone wrong somehow spilled onto his worn-out carpet. As the minutes turned into hours, her story unraveled in quiet, trembling fragments. Her name was Isabella Hartley, only 22 but carrying a burden far heavier than her age. She was the only daughter of a business empire that had ruled headlines for years, known for its luxury brands, towering buildings, and endless wealth. But behind the glamorous front, Isabella's life had been a cage of expectations, rules, and cold power. That night, after discovering a betrayal so deep it shattered the foundation of everything she believed about her family, she had run. A forged signature, a stolen trust fund, and a plan to strip her of her inheritance had led her to a terrifying confrontation. The argument turned violent. The people she trusted turned against her, and with fear gnawing at her ribs, she fled into the night with nothing but a small bag and tears she no longer knew how to stop. Daniel listened quietly, his chest tightening as he saw the exhaustion in her eyes. He knew what it felt like to be abandoned by the life you thought you were living. He knew what it meant to wake up one day and realize everything had changed, and not in a way you could control. His mind drifted to the memory of the night he lost his wife, the sirens, the brokenness, the shattering of his future. And as he watched Isabella shiver under the thin blanket he had wrapped around her, he felt a familiar ache, that protective instinct, that desire to help someone whose world had collapsed just like his had. In the days that followed, the strangest, most unexpected bond began to form in that small house. Isabella didn't behave like someone born into unimaginable wealth. She cleaned dishes with Lily, helped with homework, learned how to cook with whatever little ingredients were available, and often gazed out the window at the old maple tree in the yard as if discovering peace for the first time. She was broken, but she was trying. Daniel found himself watching her more than he should, not with romantic longing, but with something gentler, admiration for the strength she didn't even know she had. She laughed softly when Lily showed her drawings, her eyes shining with a warmth that surprised her. She cried quietly at night when she thought no one heard, and Daniel learned to leave a warm cup of tea on the table near her in the morning without mentioning it. Slowly, painfully, Isabella began to feel human again, safe again, alive again. But the storm she had run from wasn't done chasing her. Within a week, news spread that she was missing. Her name was plastered across television screens, and investigators were digging into every corner of her life. The people who had tried to betray her were getting nervous. And then one gray evening, as Daniel returned from his shift at the repair shop, he spotted a black car idling at the end of the street. His heart dropped. It wasn't police. It wasn't media. It was the kind of car driven by people who didn't knock. They took. Fear pulsed through him as he hurried inside and bolted the door, realizing that bringing Isabella into his home might put Lily in danger too. That night the tension was thick enough to taste. Isabella knew she couldn't keep hiding. She didn't want to ruin Daniel's life or bring trouble to his little girl. She whispered an apology more painful than a scream and tried to leave, but Daniel stopped her with a quiet shake of his head. He wasn't rich, powerful, or